We've covered the function and purpose of masks on the channel before, so today I'm going to show you how to combine as many masks as you want to create layers of detail on your model. This video idea was suggested by another one of my amazing viewers, and since their particular example was on layers of makeup on a character, I've decided to do something similar. So a huge thank you to them for the suggestion. Also, for this tutorial, I've provided a download for everything you'll need for this tutorial, so you can follow along. To start off, I've opened the tanarig.blend file in the download below. Keep in mind, this rig was put together very quickly and still has a few topology issues and could use a little bit of polishing up on a few areas, since this rig was just created for the purpose of this tutorial. That being said, if you know what you're doing with Blender and want to use the rig for some of your own projects, you're more than free to do that. Once the file has opened up, we can start setting up the workspace. When the file is opened up, it should look something like this, and you can see we are in the camera view. Here you can see the character I created, Tana, has some makeup applied, but there's also no highlights around the object, and that's because I have this overlays button turned off. So to start off, I'll turn this on, and now we can see all the extra details which won't show in the render. If it isn't selected already, I'll left click my face, and I'm going to change my timeline here to the shader editor. I'll drag this up a tiny bit and reposition my view with a hand icon just so I can see things clearly. Here, this material skin face, which you can find in the materials property panel as well as the shader editor, is the completed version of what we'll be making. You can see I've combined loads of layers, starting off with a blush, an eyeshadow, a beauty spot, and lipstick, just to give you plenty of examples for this tutorial. All the other details of the shader are not the focus of this tutorial, so I'm not going to go too in depth as to how they work. But if you do want a further understanding of shaders, you can always check out my Texture Basics course. Today though, we're going to switch from skin face to skin face follow along. If I zoom into my nodes here, you can see we've got this RGB controller node. I won't go too in depth as to what this is, but it's essentially just a color output for the skin. It's exactly the same as if I remove this, just putting in the color you want here. Now I'm going to open my Tana textures folder in the download below, and I'm just going to drag and drop the blush texture. If I come to the top left hand corner of my screen and drag this out and change this from the 3D viewport into the image editor, I can then left click this drop down and choose my blush.png. Now you can see a super quick blush texture that I made. Now we've got our blush texture in, we're going to need to add a texture coordinate in order to make sure it's being mapped to the UV here. So I'll press Shift A in my shader editor, then under input I'm going to left click texture coordinate. Then I'll plug UV into vector, and I'm going to change my color space to non-color since it's going to act as a mask. Now in order to combine the skin with the blush, we're going to need to use a mix RGB. So I'll press Shift A, and in the search bar I'll search for mix RGB, and I want to plug this in between our color here and the base color. Plug my blush color into the factor. Now since the blush patches have been painted in a dark color, that means color 1, which is where the colors of the black part of the mask will be controlled. That's where we're going to want to edit our blush color, and that's why you can see that our skin has gone really pale, because color 2 is controlling the skin color, which is everything in white. So I'm going to plug my color into color 2 instead, something a lot more red. If you're not using a group node to control the skin color like I am, you can just unplug color 2. So I believe it is wise to start grouping textures together. So I'm going to pull these 4 nodes together, and then I'm going to shift select all 4 of them, and I'll press Ctrl J. I'm going to left click the color, and I'll maybe change it to a red color, which is a little bit less saturated. And I'm going to call this one under label. If you can't see this menu, I just press N to open and close it. I'll change the label to blush and skin color. And now we're ready to do the next texture. Next in my Tana textures folder, I'm going to drag and drop in the lipstick. I'm going to add another texture coordinate node. So I'll press Shift A, and then I'll search for coordinate, and there's the texture coordinate. You can also access it from the input menu. I'll add the UV into the vector and change the color space to non-color, and left click lipstick PNG. If I zoom into my texture, you can see the detail here. Next up, I'm going to add my mix RGB. So I'll press the search and search for mix RGB. Then I'll plug it in again, and now I'm going to treat this as it just being the skin color and put it into the color 2 like we done before. Then I'll use my lipstick mask and plug that into the factor. Very deep red color, like that. As you can see in my mask, I haven't done a plain black, but more like a dark grey. So it won't show the full intensity of the color, which is great because that's what I wanted. Now I've done that, I'll shift select these 3 nodes and press Ctrl J. I'll turn on the color again and give it a nice red color. And I'm going to call this lipstick. Obviously these organization steps aren't essential, but they really do make things easier to edit at a later time. Next up, I'm going to add my eyeshadow. So I'll drag and drop that from my Tana textures folder into the shader editor. Set your color smaller. Then I'll press Shift A. Under Input, I'll left click Texture Coordinate. Plug UV into the vector, and now I'm just going to move some of my nodes along. If you want to see what the eyeshadow texture looks like, you can choose it in the drop down here. You can see this texture might look a little messy in parts. That's because I've done this very quickly. I'm focused on just making sure it gives me a nice result rather than making a clean image texture. Then I'll press Shift A and I'll search for Mix RGB. Again, this eyeshadow image is a mask, so it's going to go into the factor, as masks always do. Then my lipstick color output here, which now we can treat both of these node panels here as representing the skin base color. I'll just plug that into color 2. And I'm going to plug my mix color output into the base color. So I'll go for a nice red color. Again, I'll drag a box and select these 3 nodes. Control J. I'll add the color and maybe do a more reddish color again. And I'm going to make the label eyeshadow. To finish off here, I'm going to drag and drop the beauty spot PNG into here. You'll notice I've also got a highlight.png in our Tana textures folder. However, I'm not going to use that because I wasn't too happy with the result. But if you want the extra practice, you're more than welcome to try combining that one as well. I'll drag my 3 boxes here and I'll drag them along. These 3 boxes here are again just representing the skin base color as a whole. So treat this single output as just single base color that you plug into the base color of the shader. I'll just press Shift A, then under Input, I'll left click Texture Coordinate, and I'll plug my UV into the vector, and I'll change from sRGB to non-color. This beauty spot mask will plug into the factor, and I'll then plug the color of my mix RGB from the eyeshadow into color 2, and I'll plug my color output into the base color. And if you zoom in closely, you can see it here. To make it more visible though, I'm going to make it black. So I'll open my color 1 and make it completely black. Control J, and then I'll change my label to beauty spot. And if I zoom out, there we have it. We have successfully applied makeup to our character. This process will work with any situation where you want to combine multiple textures together using the power of masks. But with that, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching, and if you did enjoy, please feel free to subscribe. If you know anyone who you think would find this useful, I'd really appreciate it if you shared it with them. And if you have any suggestions yourself for a tutorial, I'm currently working on a couple from a few different viewers. Please feel free to let me know. Your suggestions are always warmly welcomed, and they help me come up with video ideas and know how to best help you guys. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.